Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. You're listening to the RX Daily Dose. Today's episode is being recorded for Wednesday, June 9th, and I'm your host, Ian Pornagoni. We update this podcast for healthcare providers, medical professionals, and anyone who has an interest in drug updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms and social media, including iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. All links can be found in the show notes below. So in today's episode, we have 3 new products approved by the FDA. The first is Myfembree, approved for use with uterine fibroids, and approval of Lumakras for a specific type of non-small cell lung cancer. We also will be discussing approval of Truseltiq for adults with cholangiocarcinoma. As always, feel free to skip around. I'm going to include times in the show notes so you get the drugs that interest you. First up this week, the FDA approved a new combination product which contains relugolix, estradiol, and norethindrone acetate, which goes by brand name Myfembree, as a once-daily treatment for the management of heavy menstrual bleeding that is associated with uterine fibroids in premenopausal women with a treatment duration of up to 24 months. The approval is supported by efficacy and safety data from the Phase 3 Liberty 1 and Liberty 2 studies, which were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Under the terms of their previously announced collaboration, Myovant and Pfizer will jointly commercialize Myfembree in the U.S. Myfembree is expected to be available later this month. Uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growths of the uterus that often appear during childbearing years. Also called leiomyomas or myomas, uterine fibroids aren't associated with an increased risk of uterine cancer and almost never develop into cancer. Fibroids can range in size from seedlings, undetectable by the human eye, to bulky masses that can distort and enlarge the uterus. You can have a single fibroid or multiple ones, and in extreme cases, multiple fibroids can expand the uterus so much that it reaches the rib cage and can add weight. Although uterine fibroids are benign tumors, they can cause debilitating symptoms such as heavy menstrual bleeding, pain, increased abdominal girth and bloating, urinary frequency or retention, constipation, pregnancy loss, and in some cases, infertility. These symptoms can also lead to loss of productivity at work, limitations in normal activities of daily living, and social embarrassment. An estimated 5 million women in the U.S. suffer from symptoms of uterine fibroids, and an estimated 3 million women are inadequately treated by current medical therapy and require further treatment. Myfembree contains relugolix, which reduces the amount of estrogen and other hormones produced by the ovaries. Estradiol, which is an estrogen that may reduce the risk of bone loss, and norethindrone acetate, which is a progestin necessary when women with a uterus take estrogen. The Phase 3 Liberty studies each met the primary endpoint with 72.1% and 71.2% of women in the Myfembree groups achieving the responder criteria, compared with 16.8% and 14.7% of women in the placebo groups at week 24, respectively. A response was defined as a menstrual blood loss volume of less than 80 milliliters and a 50% or greater reduction from baseline in menstrual blood loss volume during the last 35 days of treatment measured using an alkaline hematine method. Women receiving Myfembree experienced reductions of 82% and 84.3% in menstrual blood loss from baselines, respectively. Adverse reactions occurring in at least 3% of women treated with Myfembree and at a greater incidence than placebo were hot flash, abnormal uterine bleeding, alopecia, and decreased libido. There were no pregnancies reported in the Myfembree groups in either study. Also this week, the FDA approved sotorasib, which goes by brand name Lumakras, as the first treatment for adult patients with non-small cell lung cancer whose tumors have a specific type of genetic mutation called KRAS G12C and who have received at least one prior systemic therapy. This is the first approved targeted therapy for tumors with any KRAS mutation, which accounts for approximately 25% of mutations in non-small cell lung cancers. KRAS G12C mutations represent about 13% of mutations in non-small cell lung cancers. Lung cancer is the most common cancer type and the leading cause of cancer-related deaths worldwide, with non-small cell lung cancer accounting for 80 to 85% of all lung cancers, according to the American Cancer Society. KRAS is a type of mutation in a group of genes that help regulate cell growth and division. Researchers evaluated the efficacy of Lumakras in a study of 124 patients with locally advanced or metastatic KRAS G12C mutated non-small cell lung cancer with disease progression after receiving an immune checkpoint inhibitor and/or a platinum-based chemotherapy. The major outcomes measured were objective response rate and duration of response. The objective response rate was 36%, and 58% of those patients had a duration of response of 6 months or longer. The approved 960 milligram dose is based on available clinical data as well as pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic modeling that support the approved dose. As part of the evaluation for this accelerated approval, the agency is requiring a post-marketing trial to investigate whether a lower dose will have a similar clinical effect. The most common side effects of Lumakras include diarrhea, musculoskeletal pain, nausea, fatigue, liver damage, and cough. Lumakras should be withheld if patients develop symptoms of interstitial lung disease and permanently discontinued if interstitial lung disease is confirmed. Healthcare professionals should monitor a patient's liver function tests prior to starting and when taking Lumakras. If a patient develops liver damage, Lumakras should be withheld, dose reduced, or permanently discontinued. Patients should avoid taking acid-reducing agents, drugs that induce or are substrates of certain enzymes in the liver, and drugs that are substrates of the P-glycoprotein while taking Lumakras. Lumakras was approved using the accelerated approval pathway, under which the FDA may approve drugs for serious conditions where there is an unmet medical need and a drug is shown to have certain effects that are reasonably likely to predict a clinical benefit to patients. The FDA also granted this application Fast Track, Priority Review, Breakthrough Therapy, and Orphan Drug Designation. And finally this week, the FDA granted accelerated approval to infigratinib, which goes by brand name Truseltiq, a kinase inhibitor for adults with previously treated, unresectable, locally advanced, or metastatic cholangiocarcinoma with a fibroblast growth factor receptor 2 fusion or other rearrangement as detected by an FDA-approved test. Cholangiocarcinoma, also known as bile duct cancer, is a rare but aggressive type of cancer that forms in the bile ducts, which affect approximately 20,000 people in the US and the European Union each year. Currently, 5-year survival rate is only 9%. Fibroblast growth factor receptor 2, commonly referred to as FGFR2, genetic aberrations are present in approximately 15 to 20% of people who have this disease. Symptoms of cholangiocarcinoma may include abdominal pain, yellowish skin, weight loss, generalized itching, and fever. Light-colored stool or dark urine may also occur. Truseltiq is an orally administered ATP-competitive tyrosine kinase inhibitor of FGFR, approved for the treatment of individuals with FGFR2 fusion-driven cholangiocarcinoma. Truseltiq targets the fibroblast growth factor receptor protein, blocking any downstream activity. The approval of Truseltiq is based on a phase 2 clinical study in which 108 patients who had undergone at least one prior treatment for advanced CCA received 125 milligrams of Truseltiq daily for 21 days of a 28-day cycle. Of these patients, 99% had stage 4 CCA. All patients had received at least one prior line of systemic therapy. The study's primary endpoint demonstrated a confirmed objective response rate of 23%. The study also showed a median duration of response of 5 months. Common adverse reactions and lab abnormalities were increased creatinine, phosphate fluctuations, nail toxicity, stomatitis, liver enzyme fluctuations, decreased hemoglobin, dry eye, fatigue, electrolyte imbalance, alopecia, decreased platelets, and joint pain. The recommended Truseltiq dose is 125 milligrams orally once daily on an empty stomach for 21 consecutive days, followed by 7 days off therapy in a 28-day cycle. And that's all I have for right now. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll include all links in the show notes below, so please go back and check those out too. Please connect with me on any of your social media platforms and give me feedback on what you heard today. I'd love to know what you thought about the episode. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.